Srivasadikam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, Text 34. Hitva grahan sutan bhogan.
हित्वा ग्रहान् सुतान् भोगान्
Vedarbhi Madirikshana.
वेधर्भीमधिरीक्षणा
Anvadhavata Pandyesham.
अन्वधावता पाण्डेश्यम्
Jyotsneva Rajnikaram.
ज्योत्सेनाव्रजनीकरम्.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Just as the moonshine follows the moon at night, immediately after King Malayadhwaj departed for Kulachal, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness despite family and children. Just as in the Vanapra stage, the wife follows the husband, similarly, when the spiritual master retires for Nirjan Bhajan, some of his advanced devotees follow him and engage in his personal service. In other words, those who are very fond of family life should come forward in the service of the spiritual master and abandon so-called happiness afforded by society, friendship, and love. A verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Guru Ashtaka is significant in this regard. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasada. A disciple should always remember that by serving the spiritual master, he can easily advance in Krishna consciousness. So how to please Krishna? One can please Krishna by pleasing the spiritual master, by pleasing the pure devotee. All the scriptures recommend that it is by pleasing the spiritual master and serving him directly that one can attain the highest perfectional stage of devotional service. Krishna says, one who is a devotee of my devotee is actually my devotee. One who is directly my devotee is not my devotee, Krishna says, but who is a devotee of my devotee. So the word Madhirekshana is also significant in this verse. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained in his Sandarbha that the word Madhira means intoxicating. If one's eyes become intoxicated upon seeing the deity, he may be called Madhirekshana. What do we get intoxicated upon seeing, Each of us may become intoxicated by different objects. But one who gets intoxicated by seeing the deity, he may be called Madhirekshana. Queen Vedarbhi's eyes were very enchanting, just as one's eyes are Madhirekshana when engaged in seeing the temple deity. Unless one is an advanced devotee, he cannot fix his eyes on the deity in the temple. So the pure devotee, because he's seeing Krishna himself. He's seeing Krishna himself over there, so his eyes become intoxicated. When we are seeing our loved one, we get so happy, our eyes brighten up. So this is how the pure devotee, when he's seeing the deity in the temple, his eyes become intoxicated. He's so much in love with Krishna. So happy to see Krishna. Tatra Chandra Vasanama. Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tatpunya Shaliler Nityam.
Tatpunya Shalile Nityam.
Ubhayatra Manomrijan.
Ubhayatra Atmano Mrijan.
Andastabhir Mulafale.
Kanda Ashtabhimul Fale.
Pushpa Parnestranodake.
Pushpa Parne Trina Udek.
Vartamana Shaner Gatra.
Vartamana Shane Gatra.
Karshanam Tapa Astita.
Karshanam Tapah Astitah.
In the province of Kulacha, there were rivers named Chandravasa, Tam, Tamraparni, and Vatodaka. King Malayadhwaj used to go to those pious rivers regularly and take his bath there. Thus, he purified himself externally and internally. He took his bath and ate bulbs, seeds, leaves, flowers, roots, fruits, and grasses, and drank water. In this way, he underwent severe austerities. Eventually, he became very skinny. We can definitely see that to advance in Krishna consciousness, one must control his bodily weight. If one becomes too fat, it is to be assumed that he is not advancing spiritually. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur severely criticized his fat disciples. The idea is that one who intends to advance in Krishna consciousness must not eat very much. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, don't eat too much, don't eat too little. So we have to find our own balance. Something may be too much for another person, but it may be too little for another. So we need to each find out our own balance. The idea is to have a, a, a balanced eating. Devotees used to go to forests, high hills, or mountains on pilgrimages, but such severe austerities are not possible in these days. One should instead eat only prasad and no more than required. According to the Vaishnav calendar, there are many fasts, such as Ekadashi, and the appearance and disappearance days of God and his devotees. So Ekadashi is coming up next Sunday, right? Not this coming Sunday, but the next one, 27th, I think.
Yes, it's
So, and
27th in Taiwan.
27th. And then appearance day of Balaramji is coming up.
But actually,
You
in the
know,
calendar, they haven't written. It is marked there as 31st, but it is not written prominently. But I think it's 31st because Rakhi is on 31st, and that is the day, 31st of
over there
August.
is 31st, is it? Over here it's on 30th. Anyway, sometimes there's 1 day difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so Balaram Purnima, we observe fasting till noon. Balaramji very kind. He lets us fast only till noon. And then we can have prasad. And then, of course, Ekadashi is observing, abstaining from grains and beans. So all of these are meant to decrease the fat within the body so that one will not sleep more than desired and will not become inactive and lazy. Overindulgence in food will cause a man to sleep more than required. This human form of life is meant for austerity, and austerity means controlling sex, food intake, etc. So austerity in relation to Krishna, not unnecessary austerity. Not unnecessary torture of the body, but okay, the prescribed fasting days, Ekadashi, appearance days of the Lord, observing fasting on that day. In this way, time can be saved for spiritual activity and one can purify himself both externally and internally. Thus, both body and mind can be cleansed. Sitoshna Vata Varshani.
शीतोष्णवात वर्षाणि
Chut Pipase Priya Priye.
श्रुत्पिपासे प्रिया अप्रिये
Sukha Dukhe Iti Dvandvani.
सुख दुःखे इति द्वन्द्वानि
Ajayat Samadarshana.
अजयत् समदर्शनः.
Through austerity, King Malayadhwaj in body and mind gradually became equal to the dualities of cold and heat, happiness and distress, wind and rain, hunger and thirst, the pleasant and the unpleasant. In this way, he conquered all relativities. Liberation means becoming free from the relativities of the world. Unless one is self realized, one has to undergo the dual struggle of the relative world. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to conquer all relativities through tolerance. Lord Krishna points out that it is the relativities, like winter and summer, that give us trouble in the material world. In the winter, we do not like taking a bath, but in the summer, we wish to take a bath twice, thrice, or more a day. Thus, Krishna advises us not to be disturbed by such relativities and dualities when they come and go. Krishna says, tolerate happiness, distress. He said it will come and go like summer and winter seasons. So, Krishna is asking us to tolerate, to continue with our hearing and chanting, whether it's winter or summer. Krishna, you know, the hearing and chanting should go on. Engaging in devotional service needs to go on. The common man has to undergo much austerity to become equipoised before dualities. One who becomes agitated by the relativities of life has accepted a relative position and must therefore undergo the austerities prescribed in the Shastras to transcend the material body and put an end to material existence. So Krishna also tells Arjuna that you do your duty without thinking of victory or defeat, happiness or distress. You continue doing your duty for my satisfaction, Krishna says to Arjuna. So if we try to give up this relativities, dualities, without Krishna consciousness, it's much more difficult. It becomes easier when the object is Krishna, when the goal is to please Krishna. So it becomes easier to rise above the dualities. King Malayadwaj underwent severe austerities by leaving his home, going to Kulachal, taking his bath in the sacred rivers, and eating only vegetables like stems, roots, seeds, flowers, and leaves, avoiding any cooked food or grains. These are very, very austere practices. In this age, it is very difficult to leave home and go to the forest or the Himalayas to adopt the processes of austerity. Indeed, it is almost impossible. Well, we won't even be able to survive in the forest anymore, you know. We're not used to it. So if one is even advised to give up meat eating, drinking, gambling, and illicit sex, one will fail to do so. What then would a person do if he went to the Himalayas or Kulachal? Such acts of renunciation are not possible in this age. Therefore, Lord Krishna has advised us to accept the Bhakti Yoga process. Bhakti Yoga will automatically liberate a person from the dualities of life. Devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna begins on the liberated platform. So the devotee is already liberated. He has a higher purpose, service to Krishna. Service to Krishna is on the transcendental platform. So in Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is the center and Krishna is always transcendental. Thus, in order to transcend dualities, one must always engage in the service of the Lord, as confirmed by Bhagavad Gita 14:26. So we want to rise above the dualities, we want to maintain equilibrium, neither too happy nor too sad, not disturbed by happiness, distress, not disturbed by heat or cold, to have equanimity of mind. Bhakti Yoga helps us. The more we hear, more we chant, the more we are able to tolerate the dualities. Mamcha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityayitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. This is what Krishna is saying to Arjuna in 14th chapter, text 26. Krishna is saying one who is engaging in devotional service. So the pure devotee is liberated. He's a Jivan Mukta. He's beyond the modes of material nature. He's situated on the platform of the Brahman. He's completely understood that he's a spirit soul. He's completely understood he's not the body. He's understood he's part and parcel of Krishna, that he has a loving relationship with Krishna, and he engages in that loving relationship. So we can see the pure devotee, he's on the liberated platform. He's liberated. He's beyond the control of the modes of nature. If one is factually engaged in the service of the Lord, Bhakti Yoga, he will automatically control his senses, his tongue, and so many other things. Once engaged in the Bhakti Yoga process, with all sincerity, one will have no chance of falling down. Even if one falls down, there is no loss. One's devotional activities may be stunned or choked for the time being, but as soon as there is another chance, the practitioner begins from the point where he left off. As Arjuna asks Krishna, no, what happens to the unsuccessful devotee, one who has started the process of devotional service, but he's not able to complete it? Krishna says that he's given a chance in the next life. He will get a human body, he'll take birth in a family of righteous people or of rich mercantile family, and then he is given further opportunity to continue with devotional service. So the result of devotional service is never lost. One continues. It's eternal. Tapasa vidyaya pakva
Tapasa vidya
Vidya
pakva
kashayo niyame yame
kashayo niyame yame
yuyuje brahmani atmanam
yuyuje brahmani atmanam
vijitaksha vijita shanalish, what is that?
vijit aksha anil ashayah
Vijitakshanali Ashayah.
anil
Anil
vijit
Ashaya.
vijit
Thank you.
aksha anil ashayah
Vijitakshanil Ashaya. Thank you. By worshipping, executing austerities, and following the regulative principles, King Malayadvaj conquered his senses, his life, and his consciousness. Thus, he fixed everything on the central point of the Supreme Brahman, Krishna. Whenever the word Brahman appears, the impersonalists take this to mean the impersonal effulgence, the Brahmajyoti. Actually, however, Parabrahman, the Supreme Brahman, is Krishna, Vasudeva. So when we hear Brahman, it doesn't mean Brahmajyoti. It means Krishna, the person, the Supreme Brahman. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Vasudeva extends everywhere as the impersonal Brahman. One cannot fix one's mind upon an impersonal something. Bhagavad Gita 12.5 therefore says, Klesho adhikata taras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the supreme advancement is very troublesome. We can't even think of nothing or just something. There's some object will come to our mind. How can we think of nothing? Because we have never experienced nothing. Yeah, so that's why Krishna is saying that those who are attached to the impersonal feature, for them advancement is very difficult. And he says that eventually they come to accept Krishna as God. Eventually they will come to devotional service. Consequently, when it is said herein that King Malayadvaj fixed his mind on Brahman, Brahman means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. So Malayadvaj is fixing his mind on Krishna, the personal form of Krishna. Krishna has a transcendental form, Satchid Ananda. 2 eyes, 2 hands, holding a flute, having a peacock feather. This form of Krishna is not material. It is spiritual, a Satchid Ananda. And this is how the devotees remember Krishna. They think of his form, they think of his pastimes. Krishna's pastimes are eternal, they are spiritual, they are not material. Aste sthanur ivekatra.
Aste sthanu iva ekatra.
Divyam varsha shatam sthira.
Divyam varsha satam stiraha.
Vasudeve Bhagavati.
Vasudeve Bhagavati.
Nanyad Vedot Vahan Ratim.
Na anyat veda udhan ratim.
In this way, he stayed immovable in one place for 100 years by the calculation of the demigods. After this time, he developed pure devotional attraction for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and remained fixed in that position. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Bhagavad Gita 7.19. So Krishna is saying that Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna is everything. And one who knows this is the greatest of all transcendentalists. So one thinks I need to know something inside Krishna, outside Krishna. I want to know what is Krishna's knowledge. No, we just have to know Krishna. Krishna, he's the cause of all causes. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Krishna is everything. And one who can understand it, he's the greatest transcendentalist. He's a Mahatma. Krishna is calling him a Mahatma. One who can understand that Krishna is God, that God is a person. Krishna is a person. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that one realizes this after many, many births. This is also confirmed in this verse with the words Divyam Varsha Shatam, 100 years according to the calculation of demigods. So Krishna is saying Bahunam Janmanam Ante. After many, many births, one can understand that Krishna is God. So we can see it's not so easy to understand Krishna. And Krishna says, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. I can be known by devotion. So one who takes up the process of devotion can easily understand Krishna. But if one takes the indirect method, mental speculation or mystic processes, then it takes many, many births and deaths to understand Krishna. According to the calculations of the demigods, one day, 12 hours, is equal to 6 months on earth. 100 years of the demigods would equal 36,000 earth years. So 12 hours of the demigods is our 6 months. Just as 12 hours of Brahma is our 1000 Chaturyugas. So 12 hours of demigods is our 6 months. So that means our 1 year is demigods 1 day and 1 night. 100 years of the demigods would equal 36,000 earth years. Thus, King Malaydhwaj executed austerities and penances for 36,000 years. After this time, he became fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. To live on earth for so many years, one has to take birth many times. This confirms the conclusion of Krishna. To come to the conclusion of Krishna consciousness and remain fixed in the realization that Krishna is everything, as well as render service unto Krishna, are characteristics of the perfectional stage. So to understand Vasudeva Sarvam Iti, that's why Krishna is saying Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha, that such a soul, such a Mahatma is very rare. One who understands that Krishna is God. As stated in Caitaniya Caritamita Madhya Leela, chapter 22, text 62, Krishna Bhakti Kele Sarva Karma Kritahaya. When one comes to the conclusion that Krishna is everything, by worshipping or by rendering devotional service unto Krishna, one actually becomes perfect in all respects. So if we want to actually become perfect, then we can do so by engaging in devotional service to Krishna. Why? Because that is our natural position. That's our original position. That's the position of every spirit soul. We are not the body, we are spirit souls. And we spirit soul, each of us spirit soul has a loving relationship with Krishna. We are rendering service to Krishna in our original position. So that is the perfection. Not only must one come to the conclusion that Krishna is everything, but he must remain fixed in this realization. This is the highest perfection of life. And it is this perfection that King Malayadhvaj attained at the end. Any questions or comments?
No, good.
No.
Savyapakatayatmanam
Savyapakataya
Atma
atmanam
vyatirkatatayatmani
vyatiriktaya atmani
vidvam swapna ivamarsha
vidwan swapne vam arsha
sakshinam viraramaha.
sakshinam viraramaha.
King Malayadhvaj attained perfect knowledge by being able to distinguish the super soul from the individual soul. The individual soul is localized, whereas the super soul is all pervasive. He became perfect in knowledge that the material body is not the soul, but that the soul is the witness of the material body. The conditioned soul is often frustrated in trying to understand the distinctions between the material body, the super soul, and the individual soul. So, we are the individual soul, and we get mistaken. We are mistaken. Right now, we are thinking we are the body. Sometimes we think we are the super soul. The some mystic yogis who sit in meditation and who see the super soul in the heart. They have perfected the mystic yoga and they're able to see the super soul. But then they get mistaken and they think that they are the super soul. So there are two types of Mayavadi philosophers, the followers of the Buddhist philosophy and the followers of the Shankara philosophy. The followers of Buddha do not recognize that there is anything beyond the body. The followers of Shankara conclude that there is no separate existence of the Paramatma, the super soul. They believe that the individual soul is identical with the Paramatma in the ultimate analysis. So the impersonal philosophers, there's two kinds. One who does not believe in the existence of the soul at all. One who thinks, okay, when after the body dies, then we don't exist anymore. That's called the voidist. And then the others think that there's no difference between the Atma and Paramatma. They think that ultimately one is going to become God. One is going to merge into the existence of Paramatma. But the Vaishnava philosopher who's perfect in knowledge knows that the body is made of the external energy and that the super soul, the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is sitting with the individual soul and is distinct from him. As Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 13.3. So, who has the perfect knowledge? The Vaishnava, the pure devotee. He is understood completely. He's the spirit soul. The Paramatma is sitting next to him in the heart. This body is a product of Krishna's external energy. So Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra yor jnanam yattaj jnanam matam mama. O sign of Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. So in the 13th chapter, Krishna speaks about knowledge. What is knowledge? Krishna is speaking about the external energy, the body. Krishna is speaking about the knower of the body, the individual soul. And Krishna is speaking about the knower of all the bodies, and that is the super soul, the Paramatma. So we are the knower in our own body. But Krishna, the Paramatma, he's sitting in all our bodies. So there is a difference. There's a difference between the Atma and the Paramatma. We, the Atma, we can be only in one body at one time. But Krishna, Paramatma, he's in all the bodies at the same time, simultaneously. So there is a difference. We have to understand that we can never become Krishna. We can never become Paramatma. We are spiritual, so we are eternal. Our identity never changes. We are unchangeable, immutable. So even after liberation, our identity remains the same. Individual. We have an individual identity. The body is taken to be the field, and the individual soul is taken to be the worker in that field. Yet there is another who is known as the super soul, who, along with the individual soul, simply witnesses. The individual soul works and enjoys the fruits of the body, whereas the super soul simply witnesses the activities of the individual soul, but does not enjoy the fruits of those activities. So our body is called the field of activity. That's where how we are doing all the action. And we, the individual soul, we are the worker. We have the desires. And the Paramatma, the super soul, he is the witness. He's seeing our activities. He's recording our activities. The soul is desiring, and the Paramatma, he's fulfilling our desires. He does not, what do we say, take part in eating the fruits of our actions. He's simply witnessing. We are the one, we are enjoying or we are suffering. But Paramatma is sitting next to us. He's our best friend. The super soul is present in every field of activity, whereas the individual soul is present in his one localized body. So Paramatma is there in everyone's heart. Your heart, my heart, heart of all the living entities, all the birds, all the dogs, all the cows, all the human beings. But we can be only in one body. We can't be everywhere. King Maladwaj attained this perfection of knowledge and was able to distinguish between soul and the super soul, and the soul and the material body. So King Maladwaj, he did austerities for 36,000 years. And then he got this knowledge that he is not the body is external energy of Krishna, that he is spirit soul, that he is different than the Paramatma. He's understood his position as individual soul, and he's understood that Paramatma is sitting next to him in his heart. Sakshat Bhagavato Tena
Sakshat Bhagavato Uttena
Guruna Harina Nripa
Guruna Harina Nrupa
Vishuddha Jnana Deepena
Vishuddhana Deepena
Swarata Vishwato Mukham
Spurata Vishwato Mukham.
In this way, King Malayadhwaj attained perfect knowledge because in his pure state, he was directly instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By means of such enlightening, transcendental knowledge, he could understand everything from all angles of vision. In this verse, the words Sakshat Bhagavatoktena Guruna Harina are very significant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead speaks directly to the individual soul when the devotee has completely purified himself by rendering devotional service to the Lord. So Krishna speaks to the pure devotee. Krishna is there in the heart of every living entity. But the pure devotee is able to hear him because the pure devotee is purified. His consciousness has become Krishna conscious. Lord Krishna confirms this also in Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna is saying that Krishna gives the understanding within the heart to those who are constantly devoted to serving him with love. So when this loving relationship is there, then Krishna is giving the intelligence by which one can come to Krishna. So Krishna is speaking in the heart of the pure devotee. He's telling him, do like this, do like this. The Lord is the super soul seated in everyone's heart, and he acts as the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within. However, he gives direct instructions only to the advanced pure devotees. So not to the neophyte devotees, but to the pure devotees. Krishna speaks to them. Because they can hear, they are purified, so they can hear Krishna. We are only listening to our mind. So how will we be able to listen to Krishna? In the beginning, when a devotee is serious and sincere, the Lord gives him directions from within to approach a bona fide spiritual master. So Krishna sees the desire in the heart of a devotee, and Krishna, from within the heart, Krishna gives the guidance. Krishna is the Chaitya Guru. The Paramatma, as Krishna, is the Chaitya Guru. He guides us from within to approach a bona fide spiritual master, a true representative of Krishna. When one is trained by the spiritual master according to the regulative principles of devotional service and is situated on the platform of spontaneous attachment for the Lord, Raga Bhakti, the Lord also gives instructions from within. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam. So initially, when Krishna sees a sincere desire in the heart of a beginner devotee, Krishna gives him he gives him the inspiration, the instruction to approach a spiritual master. Then the disciple, he engages in devotional service under the guidance of spiritual master. And then when he's purified, when he's coming to the stage of Raga Bhakti, when he's revived his attachment for Krishna, then again, Krishna gives the understanding to such a purified devotee because the attachment to Krishna is there already. This distinct advantage is obtained by a liberated soul. Having attained this stage, King Malayadhwaj was directly in touch with the Supreme Lord and was receiving instructions from him directly. So this pure devotee, this advanced stage of devotional service, when Krishna is giving directions to the devotee is liberated, not under the modes of nature. So it's a very high stage. It's a liberated platform. So that's the position of the pure devotee. Pare Brahmani Chatmanam.
Pare Brahmani cha Atmanam
Param Brahma Tathatmani.
Param Brahma Tatha Atmani.
Vikshamano Vihayeksham.
Vikshamano Vihai Isham.
Asmad Upara Ramaha.
Asmat Upara Ramaha.
King Malayadvaj could thus observe that the super soul was sitting by his side, and that he, as the individual soul, was sitting by the side of the super soul. Since both were together, there was no need for separate interest. Thus he ceased from such activities. So Malayadaj could see that he is the soul and the super soul is next to him. So they are two. It's not one. It's not that, oh, all is one. No. There's Brahman, there is Para Brahman. There is Atma, there is Paramatma. There is a difference. There's difference. Individuality. There's individuality. Individuality is not with the body. You see, the body dies, we burn it, we bury it, we do, dispose of it. Individuality is with the soul. In the advanced stage of devotional service, the devotee does not see anything separate between his own interests and those of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Both interests become one, for the devotee does not act for a separate interest. So the devotee is completely understood. I'm spirit soul. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. He's completely understood. I'm not this body. So he does not endeavor to enjoy material enjoyment of sense gratification. His only interest is, how may I please Krishna? How can I serve Krishna? When we love someone, then we are always thinking, oh, how I can please this one, what can I do, make this one more happy, more pleased. So the devotee, he loves Krishna. So this is what he's always thinking. How can I please Krishna? How can I serve Krishna? Whatever he does in the interest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says that those who give this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, they are very dear to Krishna. So the pure devotee, he's trying to give Krishna consciousness to everyone. At that time, he sees everything in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything. So we understand this as that he sees everything as Krishna's energy. Everything belongs to Krishna. Everyone belongs to Krishna. Everything, everyone is Krishna's energy. Having attained this stage of understanding, he sees no distinction between the spiritual and material worlds. In perfect vision, the material world becomes the spiritual world due to its being the external energy of the Supreme Lord. For the perfect devotee, the energy and the energetic are non-different. So for the pure devotee, there's no difference, material world, spiritual world. He sees everything as belonging to Krishna. He sees Krishna's energy. He understands that all living entities are spirit souls, part and parcel of Krishna. Like when the devotees, they were with Prabhupada in New York, and they were somewhere where it was not very nice, not very clean. So the devotees were apologetic and they were telling Prabhupada, "Oh, Prabhupada, we are sorry, you have to see this." Prabhupada said, "I'm not seeing anything dirty, I'm seeing Vrindavan." So that's the vision of the pure devotee. He's always in the spiritual world, even though he is in this material world. Thus, the so-called material world becomes spiritual. Sarvam khalav idam Brahma. Everything is intended for the service of the Supreme Lord, and the expert devotee can utilize any so-called material thing for the Lord's service because he understands it belongs to Krishna. So he uses it for Krishna. And that's what the devotees are doing in the spiritual world. And that's what the pure devotee does in the material world. So for him, there is no difference where he is. The activity is the same, engaging everything in Krishna's service. So the material world becomes spiritual world for the pure devotee. One cannot serve the Lord without being situated on the spiritual platform. Thus, if a so-called material thing is dovetailed in the service of the Lord, it is no longer to be considered material. This is how the pure devotee, in his perfect vision, sees from all angles. So anything engaged in Krishna's service becomes spiritualized. Everything is Krishna's energy. From Krishna's point of view, there is no difference, It's all his. So, Patim Parama Dharmagyam
Patim Paramadharmagyam
Vedarbhi Malayadvajam
Vedarbhimalayadvajam
Premna Paraya Charadhitva
Premna Paryacharat Hitva
Bhogan Sapati Devata.
Bhogan Sapati Devata.
The daughter of King Vidarbha accepted her husband all in all as the supreme. She gave up all sensual enjoyment and in complete renunciation followed the principles of her husband, who was so advanced. Thus, she remained engaged in his service. Figuratively, King Malayadvaj is the spiritual master and his wife Vedarbhi is the disciple. The disciple accepts the spiritual master as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Guru Ashtak, Sakshat Dharitvena, one directly accepts the Guru, the spiritual master, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should accept the spiritual master not in the sense that the Mayavadi philosophers do, but in the way recommended here. Since the spiritual master is the most confidential servant of the Lord, he should be treated exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The spiritual master should never be neglected or disobeyed like an ordinary person. So we have to understand it's not that the spiritual master becomes God. No, the spiritual master is always a servant of God, most confidential servant of God. But he's respected, he's given that respect, that honor. Just like the ambassador of India in a foreign country, he's given that respect of he's representing the government. So he's as good as the president or the prime minister, no? He's different than the president or prime minister, but he's given that same respect in the foreign land. So that is the position of the spiritual master, that he's the dearmost servant of Krishna. So he's given that respect. If a woman is fortunate enough to be the wife of a pure devotee, she can serve her husband without any desire for sense gratification. If she remains engaged in the service of her exalted husband, she will automatically attain the spiritual perfections of her husband. If a disciple gets a bona fide spiritual master, simply by satisfying him, he can attain a similar opportunity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the wife, she's called Ardhangani. She serves the husband and she gets the spiritual benefit. If the husband is a pure devotee and the wife is engaged in serving him, she automatically gets the benefit. And the disciple, when he's serving the spiritual master, he automatically gets the benefit. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasadat. Yasya prasadat na gati kutopi. By pleasing the spiritual master, one pleases Krishna. By displeasing the spiritual master, one displeases Krishna. So, Chiravasha Vrita Shama
Chirvasa Vritah Shama
Veni Bhuta Siroruha
Veni Bhuta Shiroruha
Babhav Upapatim Shanta
Babho Upapatim Shanta
Shikha Shantam Ivanalam.
Shikha Shantam Iva Analam.
The daughter of King Vidarbha wore old garments, and she was lean and thin, thin because of her vows of austerity. Since she did not arrange her hair, it became entangled and twisted in locks. Although she remained always near her husband, she was as silent and unagitated as the flame of an undisturbed fire. When one begins to burn firewood, there is smoke and agitation in the beginning. Although there are so many disturbances in the beginning, once the fire is completely set, the firewood burns steadily. Similarly, when both husband and wife follow the regulative principles of austerity, they remain silent and are not agitated by sex impulses. At such a time, both husband and wife are benefited spiritually. One can attain this stage of life by completely giving up a luxurious mode of life. So, cooperation between the husband and wife to advance in Krishna consciousness. The wife encourages the husband encourages the wife. In this verse, the word chiravasa refers to very old torn garments. The wife especially should remain austere, not desiring luxurious dresses and living standards. She should accept only the bare necessities of life and minimize her eating and sleeping. There should be no question of mating. Simply by engaging in the service of her exalted husband, who must be a pure devotee, the wife will never be agitated by sex impulses. The Vanaprastha stage is exactly like this. Although the wife remains with the husband, she undergoes severe austerities and penances, so that although both husband and wife live together, there is no question of sex. In this way, both husband and wife can live together perpetually. Since the wife is weaker than the husband, this weakness is expressed in this verse with the words upapatim. Upa means near to or almost equal to. Being a man, the husband is generally more advanced than his wife. Nonetheless, the wife is expected to give up all luxurious habits. She should not even dress nicely or comb her hair. Hair combing is one of the main businesses of women. In the Vanaprastha stage, the wife should not take care of her hair. Thus, her hair will become tangled in knots. Consequently, the wife will no longer be attractive to the husband, and she herself will no longer be agitated by sex impulses. In this way, both husband and wife can advance in spiritual consciousness. This advanced stage is called the Paramhans stage, and once it is obtained, both husband and wife can be actually liberated from bodily consciousness. If the disciple remains steady in the service of the spiritual master, he need no longer fear falling down into the clutches of Maya. So this stage cannot be artificially imitated. It's a very gradual process, gradual elevation of consciousness. And so Prabhupada taught us what, even if we have luxurious things, we use them in Krishna's service. Whatever we have, utilize in service of Krishna. Make the home Krishna conscious, engage anything and everything that we have in Krishna's service. So also, since it's given as the example is given of husband and wife is same as meaning that disciple serves the spiritual master and disciple serves the spiritual master sincerely, and he gradually can revive his Krishna consciousness, steady in the service of the spiritual master. So, because one may say, oh, I have all these luxurious things, so I'm going to give it up. You engage them in Krishna's service, whatever it is. Engage in Krishna's service. Rupa Goswami says that whatever we have, engage in Krishna's service. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So we'll stop here for today.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening and enjoying. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.